So you want to buy a house, you want to improve your credit, or just be more financially aware. This is the place for you. My name is Betsy Hughes, and I have over 35 years of experience in mortgage and real estate industries, and my passion is to share that information with as many people as possible. So let's dive in to today's topic. We're going to be talking about renting versus buying. I get a ton of questions about this right now, especially this is being recorded March of 2023, and interest rates are higher than they've been over the last couple of years. And there's a fairly limited availability in terms of properties to buy. And so this is a valid question, I think. Does it make sense to get into the fray of purchasing with interest rates being higher? Should I just rent and wait for, rates to come down, or wait for values to come down? That's a whole nother question. But we are going to talk about some things here in terms of real numbers based on historical data to help us to kind of drill down a little bit on this and give you some concrete information, okay? Before I do that though, I want to talk about just sort of some general things. So the first thing is that long term, there have been studies done that show that someone who owns a home has a net worth of about 40% more than somebody who is just renting, okay? So that is a big deal. Part of that's gonna have to do with some of the numbers that we talk about here. The other thing is, I want you to think about the fact that rents increase, right? Every year, year after year, you go to sign a lease and that rent is going to increase. When you buy a house, your mortgage payment is a fixed number. Your principal and interest doesn't change. Now, we will talk about some differences here with like taxes and insurance, but those are smaller changes, I think, than what you would look at if you look at, again, historically speaking, what rental increases are, okay? The other thing is you own your own home, which means you can put sweat equity into that. You can make changes to the house. You can improve the value of the house long term and increase your equity based on the things that you would do to the house. If you're renting, first of all, you don't care if the house is worth more because you're not seeing that. But if you're putting anything into improving the space that you live, you're not going to get to see the benefit of that. Your landlord is, okay? I want to talk about tax deductions. Owning a home typically gives you some tax deductions where you have the ability to deduct your interest and your homeowner's insurance, where when you're renting, again, there is no tax deduction. You're not going to see anything there that's going to benefit you. And in general, when you're renting, you're paying somebody else and you're seeing nothing for that, right? You're helping them to make their mortgage payment. You're helping them to create that long-term wealth. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to do that. So let's just kind of take a couple of minutes and go through the scenario that I have on the screen, okay? The first thing is that I want you to, I gotta take my glasses off to see the tiny little print that's up there. This is buying about a $300,000 house versus renting, okay? And so the assumption is that you're going to be looking at a space that's similar in terms of size, number of bedrooms, all that kind of thing, okay? So let's jump here and look at buying. So principal and interest based on a 3.5% is the down payment on this. Principal and interest is $1,830, and that is based on 6.5%. And one of the things to keep in mind with this is that these numbers will be different based on differences in interest rates, right? So if the interest rate is higher, you're going to pay more, and so these numbers aren't going to look as good. But if interest rates are a little bit lower, you're going to see even more of a financial benefit to owning a home, okay? Now let's jump here and look at the rent. So this is assuming the rent is about $2,300 a month, and then it also has rental insurance in there at $35. So your total monthly expense is $2,337. I think I didn't break this down. Principal and interest, property taxes and insurance estimated, mortgage insurance, and then maintenance and repairs. So this is saying, okay, we know that you're going to own a home and you're going to have some additional expenses that you wouldn't have if you were renting. So that figure is an estimate, obviously, but factored into what these numbers are that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so going over here, we're going to look at the chart that shows the rent is the purple, so that's the one that's going up, and the blue is the house payment that's staying the same. And so the difference in cash flow between what you would pay for 9 years, that's what this estimate is for, of owning a home versus 9 years of renting is a little over $74,000. That's just your making those payments monthly, and the difference in cash flow, you're going to pay $74,000 more approximately for renting that same house versus owning, right, yourself. Okay, so you just save in what you've paid. If we don't look at anything else, that's a really big number, right? Now let's go to the next bucket, which is right here, and this is the appreciation gain. So the appreciation gain is almost $107,000 in this scenario. This is based on a starting value of $300,000, and then the forecast of appreciation is this tiny number right here of 3.44%. This isn't a guarantee for anything that's going to happen in the future, but it is looking at, historically speaking, in our area, which is Knox County, we're in Tennessee, and that's what the appreciation forecast could be, again, based on the historical numbers. So that's almost $170,000. This is just the house becoming more valuable, right? So you can see one of the things that it's important to look at is the sooner you start this process, the sooner you own a house and you are gaining that appreciation, long term, that's where that difference in net worth comes from, is this appreciation, and then also jumping over the next bucket, which is the amortization gain. So what does this number mean? What that means is that every month you're making a principal and interest payment, right? Your interest, we've talked about, you might have the tax benefit of that, but the principal, you're paying to yourself. That's a guarantee, right? As long as you have that fixed rate, fixed payment, this is the amount after 9 years that you're going to have paid yourself. Where if you're renting, this is the amount you're paying to somebody else, right? That they're gaining that. So about $38,000. Now this does not assume that you've made any extra principal payments. It doesn't assume that you have maybe made an extra payment a year or done anything like that. All of those are great things. We'll talk about that in a different video. But this is a number that you can count on, okay? So now let's jump down to this big number here, right? $184,183 is the estimated net gain that you have over 9 years by buying a house versus renting. And I want to talk about how this is calculated because there's some expenses that are taken into account here. So this 184, 183, if you were doing these numbers, you would add the first bucket that we talked about, the cash flow. You'd add the second, which is the appreciation, and the third, which is the amortization. Then you're going to take off that any costs that you would have for selling the house. So you've owned it for 9 years and you're going to sell it, but you do have to pay a commission, right, to a real estate agent to do that. So this is telling you that that's somewhere around $24,000. Okay, that's assuming a 6%. And then if we jump all the way down here, you're going to see it says initial closing costs. So this is the cost to buy the house, right? When you initially do the purchase. So what this scenario does is it takes these three numbers and adds them up. And then you're going to take off the cost to sell and you're going to take off the initial closing costs. Okay. And that is how we're going to get to this number. This isn't taking into account, you can see right down here, tax benefit 0, so we've not accounted for anything there. This is just cash flow, the appreciation of the house, right? And the amortization gain of what you would be paying yourself. This is a huge number, right? If you look at that and you think 9 years from now, I buy a house, if you're even half of what that is, I'm going to be honest with you, I still think that that's a great investment and a way better opportunity for you financially to do something that is going to be, again, long-term beneficial in terms of, gaining that financial stability and net worth. So I hope this has been helpful, just like all of the other videos. At the end, I always ask, please like the video. That just means that more people have an opportunity to see it. If you would subscribe to the channel, you'll get notifications of additional recordings that are going to be done. In the comment section, feel free to comment any questions that you have on this, or even if you have another suggestion for a video, something that you have a question about and you'd like me to answer, I would love to be able to do that for you. In the meantime, though, happy house hunting.